Happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Fiends on Video Behind the Counter. Today, I'm sorry, I'm moving around a lot. We have Miss Cindy Sanabria. Say that 3 times fast. She is a filmmaker, and she is making a documentary film on people with disabilities in the world of horror. The name of that film is Horror Able. It's currently running on Indiegogo right now. I will have the link to that in the description of this episode. Very great project, very heartfelt, and it's worth going and supporting, guys, and also a lot of great perks. But without any further ado, I know y'all probably get tired of hearing me talk so much. You want to see the guest, right? I get it. So without any further ado, we will bring in Miss Cindy Sanabria. There
Hey,
she is. How are you doing today, Cindy?
I'm great. A horror hello to everybody out there. What's
And
up,
a
horror?
horror howdy to you.
What's up,
So,
horror peoples?
so filmmaker
Yes.
and a horror addict like myself.
Right.
What led you down that path? Let's learn about you. Who is Cindy
Sure.
Sanabria?
I'm a writer, director, filmmaker, and special effects makeup artist. Um, if you guys are fans of like older like franchise films, I produced the last three witchcraft films. I started in horror. Actually, I have 2 degrees. I went to film school for it, and but I've always been a writer, and that's kind of what got me into it. In terms of like horror, I love special effects makeup. So when I started like dabbling and all that stuff, it's just I kind of fell into it. I kind of fell into it, and I've been creating films since it's been over a decade already. So yeah. I'm also a horror host with Horror Tour Guide, also known as Slaughter Sin, she with Empress of Gore, and also known AKA a horror queen. And I'm also on Women of Color in Horror, which is a niche market celebrating women in the thriller, sci-fi, and horror genre. I'm all about inclusivity, people.
Nothing wrong with that. There's
Right.
really nothing wrong with that. Like I told you last night when you had me on your live stream, and thank you, by the way. I'm sorry I got so caught off guard. I had literally just walked in the house from work, and it was like, we're going live with John. I'm like, oh, shit. So I'm like, oh, well, look, fuck, I'm in my work clothes. And,
It was great.
but you're breaking barriers, and that's something that's awesome because when you look at the history of horror, it it's not been very inclusive. It
Right.
was very much exclusive only to certain um so for that, and especially being a female filmmaker, you don't see that too much in horror either, so you're breaking another barrier. Girl, you're just drop kicking doors left and right, and to that, bravo.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yes, Amy Crabtree is saying, hi, Cindy, my sister from another mister.
Hi, Amy. Amy is helping me promote the film as well. She's wonderful. Me and Amy, we're going to be working on a project at the end of this year together. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be fun.
So, Horror Able, what was your inspiration for this?
Well, I was raised by a family with disabilities. My mom, my dad, my sister. And I, for one, know that people with disabilities may have certain, they may not do things the way we do them, but they still get them done. And sometimes better than the able bodied people.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and just because I have a lot of friends in the industry that I know that are horror able, they're in love with horror films and they're doing a lot of great things and they have disabilities, but they're either, a lot of them have been discriminated against because of that. They're not given the right opportunities. And So this is just to kind of spread the message, raise awareness of inclusivity and accessibility in our industry, and and also see the different sides of that, because there are people on the documentary that you will see that it has served to their advantage, such as Michael Berryman is on the project, and he's actually had a prolific career in the horror industry, so he's used his condition as a means of financial gain, and for popularity, and he's done a great job at it, and he's an excellent actor. So you know this definitely sheds light on the world of disability and on the creatives and how they get things done, what do they do, and describing these disabilities so people can understand how common it is to be susceptible to becoming disabled. I mean, like, it can happen to anyone at any given time, so that's the reality of it. So it's just very important to get their messages out. Their stories are very important to me, and I feel like the more that Hollywood and indie cinema embraces inclusivity, I feel like we're going to be headed in the right direction, in terms of like future filmmaking, because there's so many stories that need to be told. And how great would it see all these stories from like disabled horror filmmakers? There's actually a few of them out there, and it shows their perspective, and how they shed light on disability within horror, because you have seen it from an able-bodied perspective. Many times we see people who aren't disabled but act in disabled roles, right, on camera. And but some people say, argue the fact that why not use a disabled person with that disability for that role, not to discredit actors that do that, because you are an actor after all, so we have both sides to that. It's a non-biased documentary where you have multiple viewpoints, and it leaves the viewer to describe, to decide, where they feel with the subject matter, where they lie with that.
Yeah, and a lot of these actors and actresses are just awesome. I mean, they are legendary. Like Michael Berryman. For those that don't know who Michael Berryman is, I'm going to take your horror card for that if you don't. But if you, not really, but if you don't, he was in the original The Hills Have Eyes, and he was such a prominent figure and actor within that movie. It was one of the most legendary roles of his career. It wasn't the only one, but
Right.
but without him in that film would have never been what it was. He was that important to it. He was also in Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, and different. Those of you
Weird
who don't know who
Science.
that is, yeah, I mean, Michael Berryman does have a unique look, and it's because of his condition. But don't let that fool you. He's kind of a ladies' man. I mean, there's a but he's a very charming individual.
Yes. Also director the director of Blackula is on it as well. He's also part of my perks, and that's William Crane. We have a William Crane perk. For $150, you'll get, a personalized video from him. Um, and you'll get one of these cool horror shirts. That's why I wore it today, so you guys could see one of the perks. And we have a fantastic horror able poster that I have not I have not made public due to the fact that I'm saving it for the perks, and so I don't want anybody taking a digital copy off. Those are exclusive for the perk donors, and but you'll be seeing like we have other concept posters that we've been throwing up there.
So let's concentrate on William Crane, because I don't think this man gets the just due, the recognition that he so richly deserves. He was very important to horror. Also, black exploitation. It's hard to say.
Yes, Black
Black exploitation films in general, and as far as like in monster movies from the black exploitation era, he created quite possibly the most memorable and legendary character in Blackula. Which, if you've not seen that movie, I know, don't let the name of it just throw you off from it. It is a terrific movie. It
it is.
really is, and it's its own unique spin on the legend of Dracula, and it works so well, and it's so many '70s. kind of like, you know, just it's a very 70s movie, but he, I mean, in your opinion, do you think he gets the recognition I mean, because I feel like he's, I don't know, he deserves way more than what he's gotten.
Well, I'm a friend of Williams, and I have to say that he absolutely doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. I know that, there was a time where, people of color really had to know their place in Hollywood, and he was one that was an avid speaker, and that kind of got him shunned for a little while in Hollywood. So I think that that's where some of his credibility had, and then he came off for a little while to raise a son. He has a 17-year-old son. And he's a single dad, so he took the time out to do that. But now he's coming back. He has a piece that he's actually working on. I read the script, and I think it's a brilliant concept. So stay tuned for that. And but yeah, I feel like he's underrated. But just like a lot of people in color, like they don't really like. It's very hard to stay afloat in a in an industry that is constantly not moving in your favor. So it's always like you have to, you know, keep it up. But I'm glad that things are changing where the industry is broadening its horizons in terms of inclusivity. So I'm happy to be a part of that movement and going in that direction.
Well, look at Jordan Peele right now. He's
Right.
quite possibly the most in demand horror director, and it's funny to me because I always thought of him as this comedian. I mean, he was on Comedy Central with Key and Peele, but
He made a
he,
full 360, right?
yeah, but
Yeah, I'm an
he's
admirer of Jordan.
right now like the most in demand director for horror in Hollywood.
Right.
I mean, Us,
Get Out.
Twilight Zone, yeah, Get Out. Uh,
Lovecraft was my favorite. Lovecraft Country.
mhm,
Have you seen a series?
yep.
Oh,
And I
it's
can't believe they didn't renew it for a second season,
I
which I
know. It was so great. Like I feel like I like that's the fave out of all my out of all his projects and then it would probably go to Us after that. But like, yeah. And I'm really looking forward to his upcoming films. He has Nope is one that's coming up. And there's one more that he's working on. I forgot the name, but yeah, I'm excited to see. And Candyman, he allowed a woman, Nia Long. She's a woman of color. She directed Candyman.
yep.
And so he allowed her to take this thing. He's very supportive of women in color. So I really do appreciate people like Jordan Peele in the industry because he's very supportive of that. So
And
thank you, Jordan Peele, if you're listening.
and Candyman, I know a lot of people wrote it off because they're like, "This is not the original." Of
Right.
course, it's not going to be.
No,
It was Jordan's own
it's like a
telling of it. He
right.
brought it more to, our present day. It wasn't about the 80s or the 90s, and it wasn't directed by oh god, Clive Barker, or it was, and I thought it worked because it did deal with a lot of the subjects that we don't like to really talk about or look at. But Candyman, the villain, you felt sympathy for because of how he became what he became. Even in the original movie, he was a
Right.
sympathetic figure. It's kind of hard to hate him. To me, it was like I was rooting for him to take people out. Like, yeah, Tony Todd kicked her ass.
One thing I could admit, there's no Candyman but Tony Todd in my book. I mean, I like, you know, they brought him in as a cameo in the second one. But I'm like, if you brought him in as a cameo, why didn't you just use him? Like. So that's the only thing that took away from me from that. But it was a very interesting take. But in my book, I'm more of a fan of Tony Todd, the character for Candyman. As the figure standing in for Candyman.
I've
Go
got
to
a
I'm rooting for
Candyman Migo hanging on my wall back here. I know y'all can't see it
you.
because I'm in my virtual video store at the moment. But
I
yeah,
like that. I like that little video background. Very creative.
yeah, if I turned it off, you would be like, "Holy shit, clean that up." because it looks like ass in here right now.
You know what it reminds me of? Like beanie bag troves, you know, the where you go with the giant claw and you start
Yep.
grabbing things, like grabbing gifts and stuff like that. That's what it reminds me of your background. It's like all these cool little things that you could just grab with a giant claw.
Father Mahoney says Tony Todd is a legend. Yes, he is. He is.
Yes. Hey, Rob. Rob is another one that's helping me out with the campaign. So thank you, baby.
Yeah, I call him Qui-Gon Rob, the Jedi Master.
Oh yeah, I caught that. I caught that last night.
So, what were some of your favorite horror movies that made Cindy into a horror head?
Mm. Well, see, I am a fan of expression. So I don't like, I like when filmmakers have creative control. Therefore, I am a horror connoisseur, more of foreign horror, because they have a little more creative control. The things that they were allowed to do before United States was able to like kind of like upgrade on gore, they were already like been there, done that. So I would say a person that really inspired me is Takashi Miike. I'm a big Takashi Miike fan. He made films like Ichi the Killer, Audition, if you've seen that. I like Korean director Chan Wook Park. I like uh, I like films like Inside, if you've seen that. That's a French horror. Martyrs. So things like that, I guess, initiated my love for, you know, wanting to do the extreme, you know, because I was like a real brutal filmmaker when I first started. You'll see a lot of like I made a film called Force a Habit with a guy that was obsessed with the scent of blood. And he predominantly went after black women. So he prayed after and it's a pretty crazy project. But like, you know, it was kind of like on a whim. It was all about color with light. It was a project about light, and I just kind of took it to the extreme. So I always used to like have this shock factor in class when I used to present my films. They're like, "Oh God, Cindy, we already know this is gonna be another bloody film." And I'm like, "Hey, I take pride in that film. I mean, you know, I made that blood from scratch. Damn it." So
Corn
yeah.
syrup, food coloring. You don't understand.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I've been actually hired to make blood for films, you know. So I worked on a film for a filmmaker. Her name is Victoria Elspeth, and she was making this short film about a serial killer, and like I, you know, I did like the prosthetics and the blood for that, and we had several blood tests. I mean, like that was the first time that I ever, you know, that it was that intense. You know, I was coming several days in a row, like trying different colors, thickness, you know, and yeah, and eventually worked and nailed down the color, and she loved it. My blood looked beautiful. I'm sorry, I take pride in blood. You know, I love blood. Blood
See,
is,
you you were hitting on something right now that so many people probably think blood. That's probably just so easy to make. It's not. It
it
really
really isn't.
because you have to get it just right because of when you're filming and the light and everything like that.
Right.
You need the camera to pick up on it and you kind of want to focus on it. So you got to get the shimmer of it just right. I know there was one movie, I forget the name of it, so forgive me, but I remember the director saying that they had to add some kind of toxic chemical to it because but they weren't going to put it on the person,
Right. Right.
but it they needed that shimmer off of it for the camera because it wasn't picking up. So I think it was like mercury maybe or something they had to add to it that would give it just a shimmery effect as it was splattering.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, that's crazy. I know, like I've like one of the most theatrical versions of blood that I've ever seen in a movie. I would have to say is Martin, George Romero's Martin. That blood was so like a paint, like, you know, very interesting color that he used and everything like that. But you know, hey, people get creative with it, you know. But I feel like the more realistic it looks, the more believable your film can be. So
I'll tell you one of the best blood effects I can remember was from Friday the 13th part 1, the Kevin Bacon death scene when the arrow
yes,
hit his neck.
with the piercing of the neck, right? I
and it
actually
wasn't
posted a meme about that not too long ago in my feed.
and it wasn't necessarily the blood, but it was just the bubbling of it, the way they did it. And it was a happy accident because the machine that they had to pump the blood broke. So Tom Savini's under this bed and he's got his assistant there blowing into the tube, and it worked better than the machine.
Right, right.
But
I love Tom Savini. Actually, so some of the people that I reached out for promoting, Tom Savini was going to be on this documentary, because he was going to speak about his PTSD. It's an invisible disability.
yeah,
But we couldn't make it work. I was already like kind of pushing a deadline because of Michael Berryman. I had to like hold off for like about a year before I, got to finishing it, and Tom Savini needed more time as well. And I just like really couldn't, we couldn't make it work, unfortunately. And so, but I did ask him if he could promote it and stuff. And so I reached out to him recently, and so hopefully he said he'll send it to his assistant. So we'll see. But I'm a huge fan of Tom Savini. I hope to work with him soon, one day, maybe next year. And I'm hoping sooner than later. Trust me.
yeah, I love Tom Savini, and like you said, his PTSD is he's always been open to talk about it. And
Yes.
I served in the military, and I don't consider mine severe, but I do
Mhm.
suffer from it, and I have anxiety issues and stuff. But I've always looked at him as a inspiration of everything that he's accomplished. They never let it hamper him from achieving things. But people don't realize a lot of his effects, especially with the wounds and different things like that. He got those inspirations from things that he literally saw on the battlefield in
Right.
Vietnam.
Yeah.
So that's why it looks so realistic, because he's seen some shit, and it's translated into his work.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes him so good. And I feel like he's pretty good at creating creatures too. Like I really like the this it was like a weird like giant rat version, you know, like vampire kind of thing in From Dusk Till Dawn. Do you remember that scene? And I think that's what he turned into, right? Um
Yep.
yeah, but like he's phenomenal. I'm like a big fan of his work. And I know that there's, I on Horror Tour Guide, like, I mean, I was doing it a lot. I haven't done it lately. We haven't had any really interviews highlighting anybody this year, but like usually I tend to celebrate the people that aren't really celebrated as much, but they're great. I mean, if it wasn't for them, you know, these elements in a film that we appreciate wouldn't be there. So like, Cliff Wallace, he's great. He's phenomenal. He's a great special effects makeup artist as well. I've interviewed him and his work. I mean, he did Fred from Hellraiser. He's worked on uh the Birch, if you've seen like Eli Roth's films.
Mhm.
I forgot the Crypt something. Um,
Well, in the Hostel, was it the Hostel movies
no,
that?
no. Eli Roth has like like not an independent, but like I forgot what it's called. Is it Crypt TV? I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah, I think it is actually.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of people that submit like short films there, and he does like previews of them. And Cliff Wallace did one version of it called The Birch, and that was pretty good. Um, Let me see. Yeah, actually, I have an upcoming, and I have to do this. I already have the interview. I have to release it this week, and it's in celebration of Horror Able 2. He couldn't make it on the documentary because he's French, so he has a very heavy accent, and he didn't want to speak on the documentary. But he did answer some questions for an interview, and it's
Think we might Cindy might have froze up there for a second. Hopefully she will come back. Hopefully. Don't leave us on a cliffhanger, Cindy, please. Do. Let's see if I remove and add her back. And there's nothing. Well, hope everybody's enjoying the live stream so far. Yep, she lost connection. Maybe she'll come back here in a minute. While we're waiting, do you all want to see me do a little song and dance? I don't know. I feel so odd right now, like I've been put on the spot. Oh, wait, there she is. I don't have to do a song and dance. Yay, I don't have to do a song
I
and
am
dance.
sorry about that.
I was
Lost
sitting there
connection.
telling everybody, like, okay, I'm on the spot now. So do I need to do a little song and dance? Like,
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's the little gremlins like messing with my Wi-Fi. You know those gremlins that you see on the plane and with the anvil? Ding ding ding.
mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
what
so
were you saying? Because you got cut off there, and
I was
I could
saying
feel my
that
fifth finger.
I have a person that didn't quite make it on the documentary, but his story is just as important. And he is also a person with a disability. He has something something very serious going on with his brain. And so I definitely want to share because he's out there creating. He's a he works with prosthetics and molding and he just finishing up on the Dracula series right now. But he's worked on so many different projects that we grew up watching as well, you know, like House of Wax, Waxworks is it? And his name is Gilles Palais. So I'm going to be posting his interview, and it's a written interview. So next week on the horror tour guide, and it's in relation to Horror Able because he is, you know, bouting. He's struggling with this. You know, he goes and he has this job, and then and then something happens, and now he's and these are like life and death situations in some cases, so but we're thankful for their creations and their contributions. But that's the thing, what happens when you have somebody that you can't really appreciate and then they're gone before you can you
Yep.
know so now's your chance, people. Please donate. I'm only asking for 3,000. The film's already made. um I'm not looking to crowdfund for to start a film from scratch. So that the footwork has already been done there. I have a team, an editing team of animator, editor, and you know, but we need your help to like finish it up because this is the whole point of the crowdfunder, is just finishing funds to try to get money to submit in film festivals to get the word out, contest entries, a little bit of payment for the editing team, and some money to get the site going for Horror Able, so we could do more promo and get the word out a little bit more on the project.
Yeah, and if I could, I will read off your perks right now. So Horror Able's on Indiegogo right now, guys. You can go over there and you can either buy a perk or you can just straight up donate. And just straight up donating, there's not a set amount. You can just donate $1. If like 100 of you donated $1, guess what that equals? $100. So so here's some of the perks. There's Horror Able. That's a special thanks. That's $10. Then you have a digital screamer perk, which includes a special thanks, a first look digital teaser, digital poster, and thank you card for $30. Then we go to the Horror Able goodie bag. And I kind of like this one. This one includes the special thanks, the Horror Able goodie bag, first look digital teaser, and Horror Able poster. And the goodie bag is kind of just, well, it's a surprise, so it's not you.
There's some surprises in there, but I did give away some stuff. So like it's just fun, like horror stuff, like there's like eyeballs and we have stickers. That's some of the things. But then there's some like other really cool stuff in there. So yeah, it's fun.
Stuff.
You can for yourself play with it, or you can even give it to a kid. Some of that stuff is safe for some kids.
I will literally have to take pictures of my apartment and show to you. I impulsively buy horror shit a lot, and people like Luke, who own comic book stores over here, know that I like to buy a lot of horror shit, so they intentionally bring it into their store because they're like, "I'll get his money," and I don't even have to beg for it. Because I'll be like, "Oh, Migo of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, yay!"
Yeah,
Who
I'm the
needs,
same thing. I have a whole closet full of shit.
it's like, who needs to pay his light bill? Fuck that! I need this.
Right, right.
But then
It's
you
like
have,
it's that addiction.
yeah, it's like,
It's a little addiction.
come on, baby, I need that Migo.
Right.
Coming up to their house at night, knocking on the back window, going, "You got stuff, man, hurting." Then you got the Horror Able movie lover, and that is a special thanks Horror Able goodie bag, first look digital teaser, Horror Able poster, and a shrink wrapped movie grab, which is a random movie. She gave away what one of those movies was last night on her live stream, and if she wants to give it away now, again, that's fine. I'm not going to do it. I want it to be a surprise.
Well, one of the films that's part of the movie grab is Satanic Panic. Only because I have it's a cross promotion kind of thing. There's a few people that I know that have acted on it as well. So and I think it's a great film. I think you guys, if you like dark comedy, it's actually pretty funny. And it's gory too. So it has good elements in it. And I stand behind that film. So it's one of the movie grabs, not all of the movie grabs, but one of the grabs we have.
Carrie Yates says, I'm currently stealing the supermarket Wi Fi to say hi. I
Hi,
love
Karen.
you, Carrie. Carrie's a goddamn rebel. You steal that Wi-Fi. And the creme de la creme of these perks, the one that I consider to be I don't know, the holy grail of all perks I've probably seen on Indiegogo. And I'm not shooting down anybody else's movies that I'm a producer on or bought perks for or anything else. So don't get mad at me, guys. But this one rocks. And that is the Horror Able Crane Fans. What is Crane Fans? Well, you're actually going to get a special thanks Horror Able goodie bag, first look digital teaser, the poster, the awesome t-shirt, but you're going to get a personalized video from William Crane himself. That's
That's
not
so
just something that's just floating out there, guys. That is like very rare. You can't even find William Crane on Cameo. You can try. He's not going to be there. So
yeah, and he's very hard to get an interview with, guys. He's not really he's not easily
he's not.
reachable. So
Yeah, some guys are like that. They're very much private, and he did his filmmaking back in the day, and now he just lives a quiet life. So to get a personalized video from him, kind of a big deal. It's like finding the proverbial needle in the haystack.
right. Especially because I just hinted he's coming out of retirement. So he is gonna come back on the scene with something, and you'd be the first one to have something personal from him, you know. So I mean, guys, it's gold to me. I love this perk because it's gold. And for him to do that, trust me, he's taking a lot out of his busy schedule because he is a very busy man. He's working on a lot of stuff, and to do this for Horror Able, it means a lot to me because he's a huge supporter. Not only did he speak about a personal issue that he's dealing with on the project, but he's also going a step further in contributing to a perk to help encourage people to support. And also, I mean, we do have a couple of people like Felissa Rose. She's like very excited about the project. Tanana Reeve Du is she's a writer with Jordan Peele. Like, she's written on the Twilight Zone series, she's written on Lovecraft Country, and she donated and she tweeted about it. So I mean, David Howard Thornton from the Terrifier. I mean, there's a lot of people that are aware of this project right now and that are very excited to help out on it. So guys, get in on it.
Just a sidebar, David Howard Thornton mind fucks me so much because I follow him on Instagram, and he's this, forgive me, but he's this very unassuming, just kind of dorky looking dude. And then you watch Terrifier, and he's hacking a woman in two, starting from her JJ all the way up to her head with a hacksaw. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Pretty
you
boring stuff.
you look like such a nice guy.
He's a sweet guy in person. We've had ice cream together. We've met him in person. We've had ice cream and a nice walk through Central Park. He's nice. He's a nice guy, but yeah, you would never. It's like yin and yang with him, and that's the beauty of acting, right? You could see somebody completely come out their shell, like completely out of their element, and just you know. And hopefully in the future, I'll be working with David Howard Thornton as well on a project that I've been trying to get together. We were going to shoot, and then the pandemic hit, and I already had approval from his agent, and yeah, it just didn't work out, guys. But it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's just on the back burner for right now.
And the cool thing about David Howard Thornton and even Felissa Rose, I love Felissa Rose.
She's sweet.
She is my not. I mean, all of you as my guests are all special to me, but I want to interview her so bad because
Really?
Sleepaway Camp. I
Boy,
love
can't.
that movie.
So do
And
I. It's one of a really, really good slasher. I freaking
but
love
it was
it.
the reason I love it is because I couldn't hate the villain. I couldn't. I can't to this day because everybody from her aunt and everything in that movie just screwed with her so much that she just went over the edge. And there's nobody to blame but those that bullied her and put her down and did all this other
I,
stuff. And also, she was so damn adorable in that movie. I just wanted to squeeze the shit out of her. I was like, I just wanted to pinch her cheeks and everything else. But I love that movie. It was one
she's
of my gateway drugs.
yeah, she's a sweetheart.
And she's
I
also one of the
Melissa.
hardest working women in film, too.
I'm sorry.
I said she's also one of the hardest working women in film, too.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you know, but she's like part Latina. So I interviewed her, and she came on and spoke openly about how she had to knock off her last name. So part of her last name, her full name is Felissa Rose Esposito. She had to knock off the Esposito and just work with Felissa Rose because they told her it was too ethnic. Because they didn't want her portraying like like Spanish or Italian. They just wanted her, so she knocked off she had to knock off the roles or she wouldn't have work.
So why doesn't she bring Esposito back into her name now?
I think she has actually. I mean, I see it on her profile. I think she has two profiles. One just has Rose and one just has Esposito. Has Rose Esposito. But she did speak about that. On Horror Tour Guide, I did an interview with her, and she spoke openly about that, and told me that was that she had even one point faced discrimination. So it's very interesting to see that even a fraction of your blood is not wanted in the industry. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
even that movie Sleepaway Camp, her and a lot of the actors and even the filmmakers themselves caught a lot of shit just for making that movie because of the twist ending.
She got a lot of she caught a lot of backlash for that as well. She said because of the ending. She also spoke about how it was done. She said she wasn't naked at all in the film. I think
It was a college student, guys, from a nearby college that was
that was somebody else's.
Yeah,
that was somebody else's body that they put her head on.
Yeah, Felissa Rose really doesn't have a weird looking ding ding. I promise. That
No,
was
she has
somebody.
three kids.
Yeah, she
Lovely kids. Yeah.
But she comes on Joe Bob Briggs's last drive-in a lot, and she does the mangled dick expert. And she's so damn adorable because any horror movie that has some kind of like mangled wiener of some sort or wiener shot, she'll come on and she'll rate it. And that's the most hilarious shit.
That is hilarious. I didn't know.
So how did you end up meeting her? Was it just through, certain contacts? And
let me see. Actually, well, kind of, yes. Felissa Rose. I mean, first I had interviewed my very, very first when we launched Horror Tour Guide, we started with podcast and video podcast. Um, so the very first interview that I did was with director Harrison Smith, which did like, oh my goodness, like almost, I think he kind of, well, he didn't start her career, but she like worked a lot with him. So like Elephant Graveyard, Zombie Killers, um, Dead. My goodness, there's one really, really famous one that I actually like, and I can't remember, but it's with Corey Feldman as well. Um, but Harrison could not stop talking about Felissa because she's the lead in a lot of his films, and he's like, "Oh, Felissa Rose," and so I was just like, well, I want to speak to Felissa, I want to celebrate her too. And then along the way, until I got to the point where I actually did, because it took me a while to get an interview with Felissa, a few years actually. But in the meantime, I kept interviewing people that worked with her, like David Howard Thornton and Damian Maffei from Strangers Pray at Night. And so everybody's like, Felissa. And I'm like, I gotta get Felissa. And then, she would answer me sometimes, but she's so busy. And so eventually I kind of lost hope. I was like, I'm not gonna get Felissa. Maybe in the future I'll eventually get her, because she's way too busy. Like, she keeps like tagging on new projects or whatever. Like, where does she find the time? And then a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, actually he had a secret crush on me. But he worked in design, like he wardrobe, and he dressed her a few times for a few movies that she made, and she loves him. She absolutely adores him, and he's a very introverted person, so she always remembers him. She always texts him, and like, she adores him. Like, personally, she has a good relationship with him. So he actually talked her into, out of all people, right? I asked David Howard Thornton, I asked Damian Maffei, they couldn't get me interviews with her, but like, I asked, my friend that has like Harley, he's not in the spotlight at all. He's like, hold on, did she reach out to you? No, she hasn't. I'm gonna send her another text. And within a day's time, like, he got me her like this, and she was apologizing to me and everything. And it was funny because this wasn't last year, but it was the year before. I was a panelist and hosting a panel on the New York City Horror Film Festival. And so the New York Horror Film Festival. And they had already, someone had gotten in touch with her, some publicists had gotten in touch with her, already had preset an interview to meet with her. And my interview was one day prior. So she was like, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. I was like, I'm going to interview you again on New York, New York. And she's like, oh my God, you're hosting that panel? I'm like, yeah. And it's funny, she ended up being a no-show on the festival. So she showed up to mine, which I was like really elated. And then she just kind of like, was just like, yeah, I don't have time for that one. Which was a huger panel. I mean, like, we had all kind of people sitting on that panel, but she's a beauty to be around, and I hope to work. Like, we've spoke about working together. So I pitched her some things. She's interested in possibly producing a project of mine. So we'll see. I plan to shoot that project next year, and it's a very, it's a female geared horror film. It's really creepy shit. Like, it's on the lines of Hereditary, and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
I won't ask any more questions. I'll wait. I would love to see Felissa direct her own film. Just one. Just want to see her direct one.
I think that is coming. I believe she spoke about something like that. I think she's co-directed, but she definitely has had her hands in production and some kind of creative control with some of the films that she's made. But I think that is definitely the direction she's headed into. I know she likes producing, so I think we may find her producing a lot more films in the upcoming year. She's invested. Actually, there was a movie that she invested in, but it kind of like tanked at the box office. But it had a great cast. It had Kane Hunter, Tony Todd. They were all like this prison that they broke out of, hell something, Hellgate, I think it was called. It really didn't I felt bad for Harrison. He was really pissed off about it because his production team like really messed up on, and his promotional team really messed up on that. So, the day it was released in theaters, like hardly nobody knew about it, and so it kind of like it went to video fairly quick after that. But she produced that, and what's the movie? It's a recent movie. I think it's called Hellgate, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. So I'm gonna double check that because I don't want to misquote anybody's film projects. Let me see. Okay. It's called Death House. That's it. Death House. And he's also the film I was trying to remember last time was Camp Dread. Camp Dread is Harrison Smith's film. So I remembered the whole Elephant Killers but he has a huge filmography as well. And you'll see that Felissa Rose stars in a lot of his films. I believe she's in Camp Dread with him. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my God, you look at her IMDb and it just goes on for days.
It floods. I know she's amazing. I love Felissa. I would love to definitely do work with her in the future because she's so beautiful too. She's so candid and she has such a she's so full of love. I love you, and she'll be like sending you love throughout like the whole time. Like she's so sweet. She really is. She's very supportive. She is.
You see her at cons and stuff, and she literally comes out from behind the table and just hugs people like she's known them all her life.
Yes, yes. Oh, Felissa's the sweetest. She really is.
And that I love that about her. Especially there was one of the most like heartstring pulling things I'd ever seen. This little girl was dressed up like Angela from Sleepaway Camp, and she looked just like Felissa. And when Felissa saw her, she just started crying and basically just melted and was literally on her knees in front of that little girl, just hugging on her and everything. It was the sweetest.
That's so cute. She's so sweet. She really is. She loves her fans. She's very appreciative, Felissa, and I think that's why Felissa's career is growing so much, and it's well deserved. I totally stand behind Felissa because she has such a great personality. She's such a great person from what I hear to work with, and she's such an easygoing person to speak to, So yeah.
I always thought it was cute how her and her husband met. So her husband played in the punk rock band.
Fan, right? Was he a fan?
Yeah. He's in from the punk rock band CKY, which had Bam Margera's brother in it as the drummer. And he had his guitar had an image of Felissa with her, that scream face at the end of Sleepaway Camp was on his guitar because he had a huge crush on her. And and somehow that got back to her, and then they met, and then romance ensued, and now they're married and got kids and all that.
That is so sweet. Oh, that's a love story. Yeah, she loves her husband. She did mention it. That's cute. Oh, love in the horror world. How sweet it is.
Who knew that you would find the love of your life through slaughtering people?
Lyrics, right? Unlike what was it? Not Kane Hunter.
He was one I wanted to ask you about. Kane Hunter, because he has a disability. He wasn't born with it, but I think he was in a fire or something when he was younger.
He was, and actually that happened on set on Friday the 13th. That oh my God, I think he said 75% of his body was burned. That's pretty bad. Kane Hunter is not an easy person to get. Well, at least not for me. I mean, I tried to reach out to, I have a friend that just finished the F-13 franchise. And he's a manager on that, and he knows Kane Hunter. And even he was like, he was having, I don't know what the issue is with now. I really haven't tried to reach out to him this year at all. But last year, I did try, and it wasn't as easy, to find him. But shit, if I could get Kane Hunter last minute, I'll slip him in the documentary. We're not in post yet. That's the whole point of the indie. So there's still room probably for a last minute. So if you guys can connect me, then I'd be more than, I'd love to have him on.
Felissa, he's uber busy too all the time.
Right. He's very hard to get. And he was before, which is why, And I did know somebody that was able to contact him, but at that time he was so busy that, he never, I guess he never got the message. It's okay.
Carrie says I'm at the checkout. I'll see you later if you're still on.
Bye, Carrie. Enjoy.
Get them groceries, girl. I like Carrie. Carrie calls me sometimes and she'll start ranting to me, and it's so cute because she's got that British accent. And it's cute when British people curse. I don't know why, but it is to me. It's like super awesome. Like it it stings more if somebody from England cusses you out because that proper English and
Yeah, calls you
that
like cunts or the bullocks. The
yeah.
bullocks.
Are you mental, man?
You mental.
You bloody bastard.
Hmm.
So, is there anybody else that's in your film that you could name, or would you
Amy
rather not?
Crabtree. Amy Crabtree's in the film. She speaks about an invisible disability. Amy Crabtree is also my promoter, but she's in the film. Um, we have we have filmmakers in the uh in the documentary, and we have a one person that's not a filmmaker. She's a horror writer. She writes horror novels. So but her name is Sarah Connor, and she's actually, if you look her up on IMDb, she Sarah Connor, right? Perfect
Dun,
name.
dun, dun, dun,
I just
dun.
love that name. I just love that name. But yeah, Sarah Connor, she's one that person that and I'm not sure if they have put her in, but Rabia Satabi is another one. And she's actually the only person that we have that's a foreigner, that she's not from the US. So she's speaking about disability on an international perspective, how they treat people in Europe, for example, in comparison to the ADA, how the Disabilities Act, how they treat people with disabilities in foreign countries versus how they treat them here in the market. And you'll
Yeah,
see a very different mentality, you know?
yeah. I know back in old Hollywood, they used to use it as a way to exploit people. There's a
Mm.
movie that a friend of mine does. Well, it used to be Sisters of the Strange. I forget what she said the name of her podcast is now. Michelle Apleone. I probably messed her name up. I'm bad with that, and I apologize. But called Freaks, and
I
Freaks was
like
about
them.
people, but
Um,
it did for a long time got banned because they thought they were exploiting these poor people.
Todd Browning.
Yep,
Todd Browning faced that actually destroyed his career.
yep.
And something interesting about, I actually like that film. I'm a big fan of it. Um, I heard that when it was screened, it wasn't so much the director that was trying to exploit them. It was the people that weren't used to seeing that. So it nauseated them to see these figures on camera. I mean, people literally threw up in theaters, like, how dare this man do this? And they weren't caring about exploitation. It was really more of the fact that how could you put these people on film, on camera? Like, how dare you, you know? Um, it was as if you go back then, like, if there was an all black production at that time, you know what I mean? It probably would have coined the same reaction. So um Todd Browning actually uh had a connection with like the circus, and actually was very fascinated with them. And if you look at the disabled, the people that are with disabilities in the circus, they're not the culprits. They're not the mean people. They're actually the ones you know that get you know that get that are getting take I don't want to I'm trying to talk about the film without spoiling the film. um that's hard. But like, so basically they're not the ones that are the bad ones. It was the able-bodied people that were portrayed as the mean ones, you know what I mean? And I like the twist at the ending. I thought it was a great film, and I love the two little people. It also had like this side story of romance, you know what I mean? But I really like that film. And yeah, I could see how and actually that film was also mentioned in that film was also so you might see a little highlight of the film in the documentary because that film was also mentioned in the documentary.
So Todd Browning, for a lot of you all new to horror, maybe he was the legendary director for Dracula back in 1931. And after he made that movie, I mean, you're talking about a guy that was probably the most famous and powerful director in Hollywood, and literally anything he threw at the studios, they would greenlight it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. So when he did Freaks, that was the case. He just walked in the office, hey, I need this money to make this movie. They didn't even think twice about it and said, yeah, Todd, here you go. And then when he made it, they said that when they were even making it, filming it, that the able-bodied people would segregate themselves away from the disabled people because they claimed that they couldn't eat their lunch without wanting to be nauseated and throw up because those people were gross to them. Yeah,
Are you
it
kidding
was
me? I
very
yeah.
shit conditions on that set. And but Todd, was always good to both sides, but there was a segregation there. And then when they made that film, like you said, it ruined Todd Browning. It took him from the highest peaks of stardom down to the basement of obscurity, and it ruined his career. And it wasn't until that movie was banned. It wasn't until the '60s that the
Yeah.
ban was lifted, and Todd Browning's reputation had been restored. But hell,
He was
by then he was dead.
he was long gone by then.
Yep.
That's
So
horrible, like in death, these people become famous. And there's similar stories of that, like with Edgar Allan Poe, for example, lived a very, very poor life and had a prolific writing career, but because of his alcoholism and stuff, he wasn't like the best character, right, in society. And when he passes away, he becomes this like, historic, world renowned horror writer. And same thing. I mean, you have all these like stories like Picasso's work didn't really become popular till after he died. Like you see this a lot with with artists, and I think that kind of sucks, right? It's just that in their era, there'll be these are I feel like in a sense these are artists before their time. They weren't ready to release this stuff because the society wasn't ready to embrace it. But then fast forward 50, 100 years later, and we're eating it up, like, and these people are iconic to us and you know, inspirational to us, and where we derive our creativity from, right? So it's kind of weird the way that works, right?
yeah, Picasso, Van Gogh, Poe,
Oh, yes.
a lot of these figures are all linked by one thing, and I didn't notice until I researched. They
Addiction.
all they were all partakers of a drink called absinthe. And absinthe back in the day was almost looked at the way that we look at heroin.
Mm.
It was like considered this narcotic. It would cause people psychosis.
Yeah, you hallucinate a little off of it. If you
Yeah,
like real absent. I mean, I've had absent.
but now it's looked at like okay, it's just a drink. But back then it was like I mean, it was evil. You shouldn't partake of it. You'll become a lunatic, and
Well, shit,
you know.
the way they made it back then, it really was lethal. Lethal
Well,
shit.
yeah, they were using wormwood and different things like that in it.
Yeah, and what was the uh oh, I can't think of it now. Opium. It was a big drug of choice back then as well.
I mean, Van Gogh. I mean, we can be, let's be serious here. He did self mutilate himself quite a bit. I think a lot of that was kind of like with people now that suffer with depression that are become cutters. I think Van Gogh kind of was in that same, just more extreme, like cutting off his own ear and shit. But
Yeah. Did he go past the ear?
I don't think so. I think he
Is it
stopped
known?
with the ear, thank God. But I don't know. Something in my brain keeps wanting to say that he actually sent that ear to somebody.
Ah, well, Mary Shelley, she had her husband's heart wrapped up in poetry or love letters, and she carried that heart with her everywhere. So, and the heart somewhere still to this day somehow.
And Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein when she was what, 12?
Was she that young?
She was young. She was like only a teenager.
I don't think she was that young though. I
I
mean,
think
because
it was
she
like
was
15, 16, somewhere in there, but they said she wrote it in like a day. That's
mm,
the myth. I don't know concretely if that's true, but the myth is that she wrote that in a day, that whole book, that big thick ass book. And it's like, I don't know if that's correct, but
she might
I
have wrote
guess
a first version of it. Maybe not that thick. I know I heard that her and Bram Stoker was very good friends. And Mary Shelley actually was a little bit older when she wrote that. I think she was about 16 because she was already I think she already had she was already married at the time. She had two two husbands, if I'm not mistaken. And Bram Stoker, what it was said that while Bram Stoker was writing Dracula, she was writing Frankenstein. So in the same house or something like that.
ain't it
So
funny that now those two
friends, right?
characters, yeah, but those two characters will always be linked together for time in memoriam. That you can't have Dracula without Frankenstein. You can't have Frankenstein without Dracula.
Yeah, they were really good friends. So it's kind of, it's kind of like let me see, Steven Spielberg
George
and George
Lucas.
Lucas, yeah. Or actually there's four of them, right? That I forgot what they call themselves, but there's George Lucas,
There was
Francis
Steven
Ford Coppola.
Spielberg, George Lucas, Brian De Palma, and Francis Ford Coppola.
There you go.
They were known as American Zoetrope.
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
I'm a bit of a film nerd too.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about this shit all day, John. You got the right one here, honey. Test me, test me. Go ahead.
So, what was George Lucas's first film?
TXH THX
Your
THX.
THX.
Yeah, I have it. And here's another thing. Do you know he went on with that same name and now he made that his audio? Now everybody buys surround sound from him under that same name, THX.
Yep.
And it was a sci-fi. Next.
It was
Yeah,
a sci-fi about
like, get me there.
it was like a sci-fi about basically people being discriminated against and imprisoned and stuff and escaping from
Very
that.
weird. Very, very weird film. Yeah, I remember the whole the cyclorama that they had there that was like all white backgrounds and stuff like that. It was a lot of absence of color. So a lot of brightness, a lot of like, he's a very interesting filmmaker. I would have to say, like, I mean, they're all great. Oh, wait, no, there's one more you forgot. Um, what's this guy's name? I can't believe Martin Scorsese.
Yep.
He's part of that.
Yep. There was 5 of them.
It was 5, not 4, right? Because I just remembered that because they all kind of have like, in a sense, there's such great creators. All of them have had like successes in their filmmaking career, but they all have their different styles, which I like.
And I think Scorsese was the de facto leader of that group of filmmakers because I think he was a bit older than De Palma, Lucas, Spielberg, and
Mm.
Coppola. I think, and I might be wrong. I might be getting the two mixed up because it was either Francis Ford Coppola or it was Scorsese. It was one of the two that was the de facto like head honcho of the leader of the group, so to speak.
Right, right. Interesting.
And then Lucas broke away from him because of I guess it was like creative differences. I mean, it wasn't like nasty breakup type of thing. It was just Lucas has always been this maverick of where he wanted to do things on his own and not have to be controlled by big studios. He was basically the blueprint for what an indie filmmaker is. Uh,
Mm.
he, of course, now he's made billions from big studios because he sold his stuff to them. But before that, he was all about artist expression and being able to tell the story that you want to tell without some board members from a big studio sticking their hands in to try to put their own creative twist on it. and
Right.
he didn't want that. And it benefited him because when I look back at Star Wars, back in the day, they didn't really know what movie merchandising was. So when he did Star Wars for 20th Century Fox, where they made the mistake was, is yeah, they made the majority of the box office money, and he got a percentage, but it was the merchandising. They gave him the merchandising. And
Right.
we all know as kids of the 70s and 80s, that shit blew up. I mean, action figures, toys, t shirts, Halloween costumes. So George Lucas got rich off of merchandising.
He doesn't need to make films anymore, which is why he probably doesn't, right? He doesn't.
He wants Disney. I don't know if Disney is
No,
doing it now,
no,
but
no. I could clarify that right now because I was working for Disney when that happened, when that merger happened. Um, Disney bought Lucasfilms. I was this close to getting a transfer over there. And so basically they merged, which is why for the next couple of years there's 10 since the first three remakes of Star Wars. There's going to be 10 more spin-offs from that time. So they've already released I think 3 films since then or 4. I'm
yeah, but
not sure. And
isn't
now they
he
have plans
a
on more.
special? Isn't he a special consultant though for a lot of that
Oh
stuff?
yeah, so basically Disney bought Lucasfilms and he can still he's still a part of it somehow. Like he still gets money, like I think kickbacks or something from the franchise. But like they had to also accept all the employees from Lucasfilms. So they couldn't fire them to replace them with Disney employees. So they just expanded on it and sent Disney employees over there too. Um, so it's just a merger. But not so much a merger, it's a buyout because they bought and they really bought it for pretty cheap. I think it was 100 million that they bought Lucasfilms for, but he owns THX. That's one thing that's made him a billionaire. He's really made a lot of money with the surround sound because now every film has to have it. It's like you have to have THX, that quality surround sound, and like all the major cinematic films have it. So he's locked into the film market anyway, and I think it gives him a broader monopoly because he's like one of the when you're sitting down and you hear it comes in that light. Um, so yeah, so George Lucas, he is somewhat a part of it, but not really. I mean, it's still yeah, they just but I mean Disney owns everything.
Well, Disney has benefited from him a lot because a lot of people don't realize is his company actually created the Pixar animation,
They own Pixar too.
and he sold Pixar to Disney. So, and that was before he sold Star Wars. And I think Spielberg got a good chunk of money too because he was a co-owner of the Indiana Jones franchise, which now Disney owns as well. So Spielberg made a little bit of bread off of that as well.
Yeah. Well, Disney has some of the best lawyers that I've ever seen in a company. You can't go against Disney attorneys. I mean, like people have literally died in that park by accident, and they'll give you a freaking free Disney Pass lifetime, membership and $60,000 and send you on your way. Meanwhile, like that same accident could happen somewhere else, and it's millions, millions. I mean, they go above and beyond. Like, part of Disney's attorney team is like pretty ruthless. It's like
Ain't
really,
that funny when you read the history of Walt Disney? He was just a poor cartoonist, and
yeah.
now he's built this $1 trillion empire that
Another
rules
one.
everything.
Yeah, another one that got to die before he's seen like major success, right? Um, and he's probably turning over his grave because actually Disney was anti-Semitic. He was a firm believer in Hitler, and it was told that he made some like helped Hitler with some plans, like some retroscope blueprints or something like that. Um, and he was like really, he was a firm believer of no inclusivity. So I feel like he's turning around in his grave right about now. Right
Or
about
in, well, supposedly he's in a capsule frozen, so he's spinning like a little popsicle in there probably. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean he I can't say completely that he was a bad man. What I mean, but what I've always seen is what we've always seen him convey on the screen. So nobody knows what he was like behind closed doors except those that are still alive that knew him back then. But yeah, he did propaganda films for the Nazis back in the day. He did a lot of stuff for the U.S. military too. When I was in Third ID, he did the Dog-Faced Soldier song and created Rocky for the Third Infantry Division. Um, but yeah, he Mr. Disney's got a lot of skeletons in his closet, and
Disney history is quite fascinating to me, actually. Like, I remember when I started working for Disney, like they tell you a lot of things that you don't know. Like I've never knew, and you have like several weeks of training. Um, so you meet the man behind the mouse, right? But at the end of the day, he created an empire that's like infallible right now. So, you know, it's another one of those like, success stories. Like Hershey, Milton Hershey. I could keep going on. There's so many of them that die before they actually see, what they work so hard for. It just keeps going. But I still think that's kind of fascinating. I mean, you leave a legend. You're a legend. You're not. You leave a legacy behind and going, and it will continue to keep going. Disney makes, I think, $1 billion a day. Between their theme parks and their franchise. I mean, come on, there's no way they're going down anytime soon.
and I will say this as a guy that invests in all my retirement stuff is in stocks, and you go on there and try to buy Disney stock. Good luck. It's expensive, like
Yeah.
super expensive. I mean, I have Amazon stock that I got 2 years ago. When I bought it 2 years ago, it was like $1,500 a share. Now it's in the 3,000s range. So you take
Wow.
that just as an example, and then look at Disney stock, which is damn near twice that much.
Hoo-wee. That's deep. And
Because
it's gonna keep going up because these I think Star Wars, like you said, Star Wars has been like their major hit because they were actually kind of plummeting. But Disney has, let me tell you something that Disney does. They have a knack of di- ditching projects that aren't making the money, selling it to organizations that boost it up and make it an entity, and then rebuy it from them once it's already up there. And they do that straight across the board, which is why they have like a huge success rate. You know what I mean? Because they've had many of projects that have failed. It's just that, they like to go after they like to go after businesses and corporations and projects that have already been established, they already have like money saturated flowing through them. And then they just come in there and take over. So
yeah, kind of like they did with Mandalorian and Boba Fett when they just kind of said, "Hey, Kevin Feige, we want you to come in and just take this over real quick." And now it's becoming lucrative, and now Disney's like, "Okay, well, we want to step in now and get they still
right,
owned it; they're still making their piece of pie, but now they're starting to see, okay, come on, hey, Kevin Feige, you want to come in and be part of the Mickey Mouse Club now? Want
right,
to come
right.
on in? Got this special hat for you with these ears on it, but." And now he's part of the club too. And before he was an independent.
They did that to Netflix too, but Netflix wasn't buying it. So what did they do? They created their own streaming network that's now superseding at numbers. I mean, it's just Disney is like, they could be shady business owners, but they're very, very smart and tactical when it comes to, and I guess that's why they're like, this monster enterprise right now.
Well, I mean, Marvel Comics, we use that as an example. Marvel Comics in the 80s was like super on top of the world. Stan Lee was a rock star, we all know. Um, he became more of a rock star later once Disney bought it.
Right.
But in the 80s, he was the voice of Saturday morning cartoons that were Marvel cartoons and different things like that. But then the 90s came in and there was like a comics crash where comic books weren't as in anymore. And a lot of comic companies were folding, they were filing bankruptcy, Marvel being one of them. And Disney was like, okay, now we can buy low. So they went in and scooped up Marvel Comics for pennies on the dollar, and now look at how much money they have made off Marvel over the past 13, 14 years, if not 20 years.
Exactly.
They've made
I mean,
billions.
Yeah. Marvel, yeah, Marvel's a prime example of that. They bought that franchise now, and actually the franchise is being, what's it? Universal owns Disney, and Marvel, Disney own. I mean, wait, Universal owns DC and Marvel owns Disney. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, and Disney wanted to buy DC and merge DC and Marvel.
DC, and yeah, and they, it's a little confusing, but they have like licensing agreements, right? So they can borrow characters for a certain amount of time. So you may see some characters cross over because they have like maybe like a 5 year, like, you know, some kind of like ownership. Like, for example, there was Oswald. Oswald was an original Disney character that Disney created around the time that he created Mickey Mouse, right? Oswald kind of looks similar to it, except he has, the longer, he's a rabbit, right? Um, but at that time, he really wasn't doing well. And something with a negotiation deal with Universal that they gave Oswald, the mascot to Universal. They just recently got Oswald back. You know what I mean? It's just it's weird. It's just like a whole weird, like, I mean, kudos to the people that are all into that shit. Like, it's so like I could do like circles, trying to figure out what the hell is what, because there's so much, when it comes to that, when you're that big, a corporation, and you're licensing and so many different kinds of agreements and stuff like that. And they're able to do that, go back and forth and switch out characters and own businesses and lead businesses and build businesses and manage businesses. And I don't know. But
Yeah,
yeah.
AT&T currently owns Universal, which in turn owns DC, but something tells me, because they've been dropping the ball on DC a lot, and mainly in their movies. Television's been fine. Something tells me eventually their DC's going to end up in the House of Mouse.
Right.
I was talking to Luke about that the other day because he owns a comic book store, and I was like, we both agreed at some point Disney's going to own Batman. They're
Yeah.
going to own Superman. They're going to own all of it.
Disney has a way of making things a little bit better in that term. I mean, their Marvel movies go gold. DC, I think, struggles a little bit more with that, even though they could be equally, like, and like in terms of like, the filmmaking value, shot the same way or whatever. But something's missing with DC movies versus Marvel for me.
There are
You know.
movies being made by people that are not comic book fans and know nothing of those characters.
Mm.
I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but it's the freaking truth. They do movies where they know nothing about what that character is, its backstory. Case in point, my favorite DC character outside of the normal Batman, Superman, all that shit was Swamp Thing. I love Swamp Thing. And they did that television show. And they decided to cancel it after the pilot episode came out on TV. They were like, "Oh, well, we're going to give you the next 9 episodes, but then after that, it's it." And then all of a sudden, they were like, "Oh shit, this got over big and people really love it, and damn, why did we cancel it before we let it run its course?" They were just so quick to be like, "Oh, well, the pilot didn't do the huge numbers, so let's just cancel it because we know it's going to be a failure." And then they didn't wait to let the series play out. And then when it finally played out and got to the 10th episode, they had this massive audience. And now they fucked themselves, and we'll never see a season 2, probably. So that's their
Right.
trouble. It's just the people that are making stuff with characters they know nothing about or what they're doing. It's like having this toy box and not knowing what's in it or how it
Right.
works. And
Yeah.
it's a shit.
Yeah.
And then they're bad about never giving other characters movies. Where, like, you know, Marvel just had Morbius. Okay, well, Morbius is not one of the most well-known characters, but I applaud them for taking a B-level character and making a major motion picture out of it. DC won't do that. They always play it way too safe. They always do Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, because DC, as expansive as their universe is, those three are the only ones that are truly, truly known in pop culture. So they ain't willing to take the chances. Yeah, they'll
Right.
do a TV show on like Green Arrow or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
They won't never take the chance to do a movie on a just a lesser known character.
Right.
And I feel like they missed the mark a lot of times with that. And that's John's
Yeah.
rant on companies.
Back to her able. Back to her able. So now you got the John's rant on comic books, people.
So Amy says, "Hey Cindy, tell how many more days are left to donate to Horror Able."
So we have, I believe, 20, 23, 22 days left for the campaign to end. It launched April 9th and it ends May 9th. And yeah, so please get in quick. I haven't checked recently. That we ended last night. Right before the end of the night was 35%. I think was the last time I checked earlier today. So I'm looking right now, and I will give you the update. I think we're still there. Okay, 35%. So we have 26 backers and 22 days left on the campaign. So guys, we're a little over $1,000 to our $3,000 goal. So if you could donate anything today, support, share, like, contribute, please do so. This is a very important subject matter. These people matter. And please support a good cause. The horror community, let's get together. Let's unite.
There are 19 perks left for the William Crane. 19. So if 19 of you good people out there in podcast world, YouTube world was to buy that, you would have a piece of what I consider movie history, because you'd have something that not nobody else on earth would have. 20 of you would have something that not anybody else on earth has.
Absolutely.
And think about it, 19 more of those bought, that puts Cindy at her basically at her goal. So
Guys, help out.
so what I'm saying is buy that shit now.
Buy it now. Buy it now.
Or just scroll over to where it says make a contribution and you can just contribute whatever. I mean, $1, $2, $3. It adds up. It really does.
It does. It
Amy
does.
says, Amy says, get that William Crane perk before I do. You imagine somebody just buy all the rest of them just one time, and poor Mr. Crane's like, I'm making the same video for the same person again?
Right. Well, they're personalized, so there will be. He already know. He knows, and I told them, I mean, I'm not gonna have him do like 50 videos, but he already agreed to 20, which is why. And someone bought one of those perks already, so
It would make an awesome
you got
Christmas.
20 out, 19 up. There's only 19 opportunities left.
It would make an awesome Christmas present. I'm just saying.
It sure would.
Especially to a horror fan.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, John, for having me on your podcast. I have to start getting going soon because I have another in a few minutes.
Yeah, I know. I was listening last night. You are a very busy woman. Busy, busy
Yes.
woman.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to be. I really need to be because I'm just trying to spread the word, help raise awareness, and this is very important to me. And then I have so many other projects that I want to get on. So it's as soon as we get past the post-production portion of this, then I could start focusing on the other things as well, because there are a lot of things that I want to get out this year. So I really, really do need your support. So thank you. Thank you for having me so much, John.
You are welcome. And Cindy, anytime you want to come back on, you know how to reach me now. Just give me a shout. We'll bring you back in. We'll sit here and bullshit or talk about a project you're working on. I love talking about film history. So I'm sorry, guys, if I got sidetracked with that a little bit, but I am a huge nerd for that shit, so I apologize. And to have somebody that shares that same passion is awesome to me, especially horror history, because horror history is deep, real
Yes,
deep.
I agree. I'm a big fan of horror history.
But Cindy, it has been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Likewise.
you, John and Cindy. Thank you, Amy. Love
Hey,
you, Amy, my gossip girl. Um, but anytime you want to come back on, just let me know, and I will make room for you. It's been just a complete honor and privilege and pleasure.
thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. And stay tuned. More to come. I'll let you know once the film is released, and hopefully you get a chance to watch it ASAP. You know. But thank you so much for your help and your support, guys, and thank you so much, John, for having me on your show today and shooting the shit about film and talking about the crowdfunder, about you know, about Horror Able. Thank you guys. Donate. And I'm on horrortourguide.com, and I'm also on women of color in horror.com. You can find me on all your social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
And I'll have all that down there in these little description thing down here. So, um, you watch this, just click on one of those, and it'll take you straight to it. And if you can't find the Indiegogo, which I don't know why you wouldn't be able to, I will have that up on the Fiendish Fantasy Productions website today as well to promote it for you, Cindy. So
Perfect. Thank you so much,
you're
John.
welcome.
You're sweet. I love you. Thank you, guys.
We love you too, Cindy.
Thank you, hon. Well,
You take, you take
okay.
care,
All
and
right.
we'll see you again.
Thank you so much. Stay
You're
scary.
welcome. Bye bye.
How do I click one for this?
I got you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Miss Cindy Sanabria. Hope I said that right. But yeah, go donate to Horror Able. It's going to be an awesome, awesome project, and so many great perks, and they're relatively inexpensive. Um, Especially the William Crane one. I can't specify that enough. William Crane is a horror icon that doesn't get the recognition he so deserves. And if I could ever have the privilege, which I know he's very much private, but if I could ever just tell him offline, off the podcast, I certainly would, of how much he's meant to horror and the inclusiveness of it now. He was one of the pioneers that pushed that. But yeah, guys, thank you for joining me, and I do appreciate all the love and support all you guys give. But me and Luke are going to get back together at some point and do something. Luke's been busy with his comic store, and he's been like just drowning in work at the moment. So that's why me and him haven't put out anything new, but we are going to sit down and talk about nonsense and God only knows what else. So stay tuned to that. Got a lot of great guests coming down the pike. Mine and my father's podcast. Yep, you all are going to get to meet Pops. Um, that's coming up on May 1st. And our first guest will be Steve Miller Band's Kenny Lee Lewis, who is the bassist for Steve Miller Band. Name of the podcast is going to be called the J&J Music Show. I know it's super unoriginal, but that's what me and him came up with, and it sounded cool. Plus, Pops is old school, so that kind of had an old school sound to it. And then after that, we just secured John J. David. Any of you that are fans of old 1970s music, especially the band Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, well, John J. David was once the drummer for Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, so we'll have him on as well. We were supposed to have Susan Lanier on, had to reschedule that, so I will get back to all of you all of when that next when that new date will be for her to be on. She had a bit of an accident working out, and I think she hurt her back or something to that extent. So I want her to get well, and I wish her well, and she will be on eventually. But your health is what's most important. So, let's see, who else have I got? Well, probably would help if I looked at the schedule, huh? So let's look at the schedule real quick, and I'll give you all the skinny guinea. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so I got Brian Valach coming on April 24th, which is next weekend, and Brian did the movie Ice Pirates, which is a movie from 1984, 85 ish, and he was also one of the people responsible for the infamous Star Wars holiday special from 1979, 1980. I like that movie or that special. And yes, I get it. It's not good, but there's this, I don't know, it's just a guilty pleasure of mine because it's so bad that I just watch it and I just laugh my ass off the whole time. Well, we got him coming on and he's going to talk about the whole filming process to that, which involves a lot of things, probably to include being chemically impaired, if you know what I mean. But yeah, he'll be on. Uh, then we'll have Miss Jamie Apple, special effects artist Jamie Apple, on May 1st. She is what I dubbed the goddess of gore, so she'll be on May 1st. So we've got guests galore, and I also want to send a special shout out to Mr. Steve Joyner. Steve Joyner is a publicist, and he has been very responsible for a lot of these guests that we get on this podcast. And for him to put the trust in me and to give me these contacts and these guests, that means a lot to me. So, Steve Joyner, you rock, man. I do appreciate all the guests and the people that you've thrown my way and having the trust in us to do right by them. So that means a lot. Also, before I get out of here, it's called house cleaning. So this is the last. The last. Um, we have a really, really special guest, and this is going to be a heavy one. But so on, let's see if I can find the date and time. So on May 19th at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, I am going to have Miss Amy over on. And this is going to be a little bit different. This is not going to be dealing with horror movies, and it's not going to be dealing with music, bands, any of that stuff. This is a heavier subject. So, if any of you all are familiar with the date of April 20th, 1999, then you would know that day is an infamous date. I know a lot of people look at it, no, it was 420 or whatever, but there's a darkness to that date, and that is because that was the date of the Columbine massacre on April 20th of 1999. Well, Miss Amy Over is a survivor of that day, and we will have her on the show. And we're going to talk about her foundation, which was born from that tragedy, and the positivities and the positives that have came from that. You know, it's called the Rebel Project. And if you go to our social medias, we actually have a post on there for a fundraiser that the Rebels Project is doing. And basically, what the Rebels Project is to help educate and bring awareness to prevent that type of tragedy to ever happen again. So if you can, just go to our social media, follow, to the rebelsproject.com, and just donate to it, because it's a great cause ran by great, awesome people who took a really dark tragedy and made a positive out of it. So I am very honored and humbled that we get to have her on to tell her story. Well, guys, that's a wrap for now. So thank you again for all the love and support that you give this podcast, the shares, the likes, the comments. I am always thankful for all of that, and to all the friends that I've made. I love you all. To all the guests that I've had, thank you million times over for coming on and sharing your stories and your time with me. And I guess that's it. So it's been your old buddy John. We'll see you again next time on Behind the Feed.